By Marriott Entebbe. Comfort and luxury at its best.
Oh yes, a wonderful morning once again. I appreciate that you've been with us since morning from Good Morning Family. And now, yes, my name is Luke Mazumba Alnaito and I want to welcome you to Issues at Hand. Yes, we are powered by Protea Hotel by Marriott in Entebbe, and the numbers are just down there below the screens. You can want to contact them and of course find out what they can offer best. But trust me, they have the best services. Yes, Issues at Hand. Today we are going to be discussing a very, very wonderful aspect because it is the key to everything that we are here today. So we're going to be talking about education, and now specifically our topic is going to be the state of education in Uganda and looking at the unending challenges in the private schools. So here with me is Mr. Mwamula Juma, who is the General Secretary, Uganda Private Teachers Union, and also the Vice Chairman General for NOTU. And I welcome you and want to greet you.
Thank you so much, my brother. Look, a very good morning to you, a very good morning to our viewers out there. I want to thank you again for the opportunity that I am here. It has been a while, but I'm so glad that I'm home.
Very wonderful. It is a pleasure to have you. So, starting us off immediately, can you briefly give us the kind or the state of education right now in Uganda?
Well, such look to be a fairly complex scope that we, maybe I now need to zero down onto something a little more small. I would say that topically is we are having a very serious education-related discussion in the public realm, and it is coming from the Parliament of the Republic of Uganda. As we speak now, just very recently, the Minister in charge of higher education, I think on behalf of the Minister for Education and Sports, presented a teacher's bill. And that is something very, very important for any Ugandan, any teacher to really understand and reflect upon. It's a proposal that is coming forth to regulate the space under which teaching is going to be conducted, to regulate the person who is going to offer the service of teaching, and so many other things. And so it is important for any teacher out there to really have a fair appreciation of this. And because it is at the stage of a bill, such is the time for you then to bring in your feels, your views of what you think this could be, such that by the time it is passed into law, it is something that makes a reflection of your aspirations. Okay. We have not been having a specific law that regulates the profession of teaching. As we speak now in the proposals of the ministry, they are bringing forward a number of things. First of all, they are making a definition of a teacher in a very professional manner by placing very specific requirements that one has to possess before you can enter into a class. One is, you might know that as we speak today, we have many teachers at various grades of qualification. We have the so-called grade 3 teachers. I think those ones normally finish senior 4, enroll for teacher training colleges and get a certificate in teaching. Then we also have the grade 5 who normally finish senior 6 and go for national teachers colleges and get diplomas. And we also have the graduate teachers. Now, this new proposal is phasing out grade 3, is phasing out grade 5. And it is specific that for anybody to serve in a role of teaching has to have a degree. And that is meaning teachers from pre-primary, which we normally call nursery, up to secondary levels. That is aspect number 1. So as we go forward, anybody aspiring to be a teacher or a teacher in the field right now has to have a reflection on that. How many of us do possess that? What is its impact in the case it is effected into a law and it is supposed to take effect immediately? Because one true thing is that not all teachers out there really possess degrees. Okay. Yes. The other proposal is that even when you have your degree, there would be a requirement for you to register as a teacher. Registration. So they have established a council where you will make applications, and on the subject of satisfaction of that council, then you are issued with a registration certificate. That registration certificate now would give you the opportunity to seek for a job in the teaching sector and be placed. But without it, even when you have even when you possess your degree, still you would not be allowed. And indeed, the proposal is even slapping a fine that should you be found teaching without a registration, there is a fine of about 250 currency points. A currency point in the context of Ugandan law is about 20,000 shillings. So you can multiply 20,000 shillings times 250 is what a person out there who is trying to teach without a certificate will have to pay in fines. And or an imprisonment of not more than 5 years or both. Those are all being mooted into this proposal that is coming forth. I think the other very important thing is that, of course, so therefore you have to have a certificate before you can go for teaching. Without one, as a person, you are reprimanded. Also, the institution where you're serving is also reprimanded. And so many other proposals that are being brought forth. So for us, as Uganda Private Teachers Union, we are taking note of all these developments and awakening our membership out there that please, this is something very, very, very important. It should never go without our voices, and therefore the time is now. The good thing is Parliament of Uganda has opened up for public opinion about this subject. So should anybody feel like you want to make a contribution towards this, the time is now. In our view, and from the small consultations we have already done, there are mixed reactions about this. Indeed, everybody wants to possess the degrees, want to possess the masters, and so many other higher qualifications. But also those who are deliberately constrained by the situation. You just asked me what is the situation like. I want to tell you, particularly for us coming from private sector, it is really a mixed kind of feel. First, there are a few high-end class schools that are really doing it fairly well in terms of payment, people paying people's remuneration, salaries, and so on and so forth. And therefore, people from such spaces might be able to afford the upgrading, which of course has a cost connotation. But we also have situations of people who are in schools. For example, this very recent one of juniors primary school in Wakiso here. Teachers were giving testimonies that have been serving for years without any penny. And at such a time when they rose up to ask for their pay, the director was rewarding them through kicks. Those things were on news, everybody was seeing.
Yes, sure.
Now imagine a person who has gone for years without a salary. And there isn't any slightest protection of the profession or the person of teaching in terms of a minimum pay that he or she would get. No slightest protection in terms of the defaulting directors there who wield a lot of power. But then you're asking them that even when where you are working you're not paid, still utilize whatever you may get from other avenues and pay tuition for upgrading. That becomes a very sensitive question to us. And I think it is something that the motives of this bill should really take a deep reflection upon.
Okay. Let's look at the most pressing challenges facing majorly you, the private sector.
Speaking about the most pressing challenges, one I would say is the question of job security and perhaps decent work. First of all, for everybody who go out to seek education and qualify, the intention is, of course, to have that natural enlightenment. But very, very, very fundamentally is that enlightenment has to support you to do a livelihood. Let me go, get educated, such that I can use the advantage of my education to live a better life. And indeed, in our families, when we are speaking to our children, sometimes we even say, for you, you have failed to go to school. You will see how your future will hold. So the whole thing is about having a better future out there. Therefore, every person who is pursuing or who has pursued the profession of teaching, the intention is that you would utilize that service to better yourself. But as we speak today, people working in private schools, even after toiling to get the work, there is no security in that workplace. In situations where security is there, there is no decency. There is a concept that we call decent work. A work that is providing for your fallback in case any problem arises. For example, you have been a very dedicated teacher, doing all that you can do from Monday to Sunday. Teachers in private schools work from Monday to Sunday, because even over weekends they have to pretend over the children and so many other things, do the planning and other things. So you are such a person working from Monday to Sunday, January to December. But at such a time when schools are not active, especially when they're in holidays, the payment is not there, even when you are kept at work. That is concept one. Two, in situations where you have a problem, for example, you have fallen sick and therefore you are unable to present yourself at workstation, there is no fallback, what we call social protection. People only work for us, people are only rewarded for as long as they are in class. And yet, decent work provides that when you are working today, you have to have a plan that there can be inconveniences tomorrow. Therefore, make preparations for that hard day that may come. So it entails for a saving that protects your future in terms of your old age, that may protect you in cases of ailments when you actually cannot be able to make it at work and therefore have a salary, but at least you have saved something that can help you through the days. It entails issues of some reasonable income that you can save and therefore do investment and therefore do expansion of your wealth. But the earning in the private sector does not support, majorly the earning in the private sector does not support any of those tenets of decent work.
Is there a framework or a structure of payments, or it depends on the kind of school?
As we speak today, first, at national level, there is no minimum wage, because that would be the benchmark for anybody to say that there can never be a payment below this amount of work. But even in the profession of teaching, that the Minister of Education is so proud of speaking that we are regulating and so on and so forth, there has never been such. And indeed, it is the basis for which the likes of the directors of GS are coming about. First of all, to promise peanuts, but even not to effect that peanut that has been promised. So I mean the whole thing is really on to before the hands of the employee himself, before the hands of the teacher himself. It is a teacher for himself and perhaps God for us all. So in our view, before some of these tough and very hard requiring proposals are brought in Parliament, we were thinking that the first discussion or first consideration would be to make the teaching space a better and enjoyable one. A better in a sense that we have a protection to people's payments, salaries and rights. A better in a sense that we have the minimum that any person offering his service in teaching can earn, and not being left in the hands or in the whims of the owners of capital. Maybe we need to remind ourselves that naturally, forces of capital do require that they do exploitation as much as possible to the means of production. The people who wield the capital, those who establish their schools, for them their intention is to make sure that they cut the costs as much as possible, such that at the end of it, they can be able to maximize profits. So part of what they are considering for areas of cut are the wage bills, what they pay out to the teachers, what they pay out to the workers. So we think that such has to be tamed, such has to be regulated by the ministry, and that should have been one of the initial stages. Such that if we have an empowered teaching force, empowered in a sense that they have job security, empowered in a sense that they have fair pay for their services, then we can ask of them to have all those very many requirements. And after all, if the profession is such enticing, then it would even be pulling so many other players out there who really want to join. Maybe we need to reflect and understand that as we speak today, the profession of teaching, unfortunately, is perhaps a last-end profession to so many students out there. For you, a journalist, ever make your investigative kind of journalism and appear into a class and ask the class, you would find that a class of about 60, if you ask, how many of you want to be this and that? People will tell you of lawyers, will tell you of engineers, but they would hardly speak to you about intention to be teachers. That means that the earlier individuals who wanted to be engineers only in teaching as a last resort, not as a primary need or aspiration. So first, we already have that lag of interest into the profession. But other than creating motivation, we seem to be creating other stiffer kind of requirements that are going to pull out so many. The other very factual thing that we need to reflect on is that very recently we have been seeing a very large move by people, especially in public service, seeking for early retirement. Not a month ago, press was putting forth about 5,000 teachers who were seeking for early retirement. It is not because it is all well there and therefore that they are giving up comfortably, but it is simply because they have been overly frustrated that they do not see any hope. If you look at the number of our brothers and sisters who are running to the Gulf to go and work into people's houses as maids, as house managers and so on, a fair proportion of them are teachers. And the issue is because they think it is better off to go and serve as a maid into somebody's house in Saudi Arabia than actually keeping as a professional teacher here in Uganda. So for me, the first thing would actually be to make education professional more appealing, more attractive, such that we draw many competent people who might come on board, and then as they come,
Issues at hand, powered by
Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. Comfort and luxury at its best.
Issues at hand, powered by
Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. Comfort and luxury at its best.
Apologies for that technicality, but I was still telling you that here with me is Mr. Mwamula Juma, who is the General Secretary for Uganda Private Teachers Union, and also he doubles as the Vice Chairman General for NOTU, and we are discussing about the state of education here in Uganda, specifically the private sector, but of course relating both, because it is one whole education system. You cannot entirely differentiate them. So, Mr. Juma, I wanted to bring to your attention to ask you about the financial constraint or the financial strain in the private sector. How is it affecting the education system in general? Because I understand the financing may not be the same as that for the public sector.
First of all, I think speaking about financing of education sector is for us to reflect on the nature of ownership of schools that we have in Uganda. I think there are about 3. We have such schools that are purely government owned, established, run, managed by the government itself. We also have schools that are established by private players but aided by the government. Largely those are mission schools, religious-based, NGO founded, and so on, such kind of schools. Then we also have those that are purely private owned. Speaking about the financing in private owned schools, first to appreciate that such schools do not have any government support. So we never should look at the national budget and think it has any relationship with the private schools. Their financing is purely dependent on the owner of the school, and at a later stage, maybe with the support of the parents who pay fees and who do fundraising and all that kind of thing. So, as you know, looking at private schools across the board, either at nursery levels, at primary levels, at secondary levels, they deeply differ, and they differ depending on the owner of the establishment. There are those we may even classify. At one time here, the Minister of Education was doing classification of schools, and they invested in a whooping sum of money just for that sake. And they established the so-called platinum schools, gold schools, silver, all those classifications. So indeed, those classifications are happening. You just find one in the category of platinum, perhaps platinum to mean that it possesses all the admired facilities of any decent school would have. Today, as we speak, there are such schools with very beautiful class blocks, very great sportive amenities, very ambitious learning space environment that you would mistaken it for a hotel setup. Very good, for example, laboratories, computer laboratories, science laboratories, and all that. Those are there. But we also still have schools that are operating under trees because of lack of money. So really, it is a diversity, and it is dependent on the person who has established the capital and the wealth before his or her disposal. Those with have really put forward first-class establishments, and those without have also done in the level that they can. Maybe that then takes us to a question of, should everybody who think that education is a profitable venture go into education without a regulation? It's a big factor, because what we are seeing today, even a person with 2 rooms
can start a school.
Starts a school. You gather children, you slap a fee onto them, and after doing the collections of the fees, you run away. We have seen cases of people who are collecting very huge sums over and above. Today we are going into UNEB examinations. Maybe we will see this rise as exams near. People who slap examination fees over and above the official monies, but even then do not remit that money to the examination body. So at the time when children think that they are due for sitting for their papers, they are disappointed that you never registered. All those cases are happening, and it is possibly because of the weaknesses in the supervision, the weaknesses in regulating operations of some of these spaces.
By the way, specifically about the fees, examination fees, how do you regulate that? Don't you have an aspect maybe to address that? Because it is really a big issue. Every school, mostly private, they put their own amount.
First of all, every year when registration, especially for end of course exams, course are meaning primary or O-level or A-level, those examinations that are conducted by UNEB, every year UNEB issues a circular that speaks about the amounts of money to be paid for each candidate, and that circular goes out to the public realm. What is done is that school owners, the people who own centers, do not wish that information go public. Okay. Instead, they do put their own school-based circulars asking for money. And when they are asking, many times that money is even over doubling. The explanation is that beyond the official UNEB fees, which must be banked to UNEB, they also have to do other administrative roles. For example, picking examination papers from examination centers to schools are taking them back, and a few of those are other administrative things. But I think that should have not been a case really for overcharging parents or overcharging children. Yes. Ministry of Education has ever come out to make I want to call it a cosmetic statement about that kind of situation. But it is such cosmetic because it has never taken effect and it is not implemented. As we speak, until now, we still see those exorbitant charges that are over and above the official fees, and nothing is happening. We continue seeing situations where some people are even failing children to register, or even those who registered are being failed to sit for examinations because they have some other requirements, maybe by the school and so on and so forth. So those are the issues that we are saying, that before we speak of making life very, very tight for a teacher, for a person giving in a voluntary role to serve as a teacher, we would first of all put some of those things into perspective and in better note. There's one thing I do not need to forget, especially about the teacher, and maybe what I consider for a contradiction with this government. Today, as we speak, Uganda requires about 271,000 teachers to work in public service, from tertiary, secondary, O-level, primary. We need about 271,000. The government of Uganda, through Public Service and Ministry of Education, has only placed about 173,000.
Wow.
Clearly, it means that there is already a natural deficit of teachers in public service. And indeed, if you walked to any government school now, you would note that there are two staff lists. There are those on government payroll, and there are those who are doing a voluntary service, even doing volunteering for the government. So, when the government has in itself failed to meet the capacity of teachers required for their schools, and now they are going about to say that even of this smaller number that they already have, they are going to put a sieve that leaves out some of them, especially those who do not qualify by possessing a degree. It clearly means that of the 171,000 that we already have, many of them are also going to drop off because of not meeting the criteria of possession of what the government is requiring. And so what would that eventually mean? It would mean that most of the government teaching facilities, most of the government institutions will not have a workforce.
Wow.
So the child of a Ugandan will suffer and even suffer more. It is good to have degrees, as we have already said. It is even good to have PhDs in education. But it is better that before we push for such, we have put the circumstances that are really enabling for these people who we are asking to possess the degrees to actually have them.
Okay. Currently, there is, I think, is it teachers who are for government, but they do part-time in private sectors. And I overheard that government is monitoring or tracking them, and they should be stopped. Won't this hit the private sector?
First is that there are so many qualified Ugandans out there who are jobless. That is as a matter of fact. Maybe the difference is that some people on government payroll are perhaps more experienced, more skilled, and therefore if they withdraw, the private sector would in a way be affected. The other thing is that for everybody who is into government school, actually is employed on a full-time basis. Even when they may count your hours of teaching, but essentially you are supposed to be a full-time officer. And therefore, before your hours into class, you expect that you should dedicate some time to do social interactions with the children for other co-curricular support. So in the situations where we have seen teachers going for part-timing, it is speaking to the reward that they are getting. Imagine a person who is qualified and is earning 600,000 shillings and is living in Wakiso district, where the cheapest you could have a house to stay in is about 200,000 shillings. What would that support him or her when actually is a profession? The only option is that he also has to divide his time to think of appearing to go and make this 600, but also hustle elsewhere to be able to make ends meet.
Sure.
So this is what we are speaking about, that make the teaching profession attractive. Make it attractive in terms of the pay for a teacher. Not the selective pay where we are seeing our colleagues in sciences in secondary schools having 4 million against the others having 800. No. Fine, we have started with the scientists. Now let's also raise those in art category. Let us raise the pay for our colleagues in the primary level. Then such a person, when he is well rewarded, you can ask that he should be in school all the time.
Okay.
And indeed that will be, because after all, what would be the purpose for running here and there when actually what you would go to run for is provided to you right away. Yeah. So the case of party timing, even with very tough regulations, shall never end, except when the issue of what people are pursuing to get from the party time is addressed.
Okay.
And what they are pursuing is welfare. Somebody want to be able to raise his money for rent. Somebody want to be able to raise money for dressing. Somebody want to be able to raise money for fees for his children. When those are not answered, we shall never have. And in situations where we think we are going to force them, people will resign, like we are already seeing early retirements.
Okay. So let's talk about the long-term solutions you think that can be implemented and maybe to make better the education system generally.
First of all, speaking about long-term solution, I think we can look at different prayers. First of all, from the side of the government, is that we need to make timely needed interventions. As we speak now, what is most needed is the question of addressing welfare of the teachers. Let us speak about the welfare of teachers. The others will naturally come. For as long as the teaching profession is such appealing in terms of the pay, for as long as the teaching profession is appealing in terms of a social status, I will tell you, if you went to the streets there and you seem to be fairly organized but looking miserable, always the definition is that you're a teacher. That is very, very unfortunate, and it cannot continue to be. So where we are seeing colossal payments of people because they are into houses, into parliament, into this, such a commensurate share should be given to the people who are making those who go to parliament.
Okay.
Consider the question of teachers' welfare. Pay them well, make decent housings for them, provide social security for them such that somebody knows that after I have left this space, should I get a problem when we are going to Kasenyi for school study and maybe we got a problem, I have a fallback for my dedication, I have a fallback for my living, even when I'm unable to appear. If those are addressed, the others will naturally.
Okay.
So the regulations should start by regulating welfare.
All right.
The other thing, to us as teachers, it is important for us to embrace unity and unity of a purpose. In the world of work, the unity that is talked about is the unity through trade union. So let us join the existing trade unions and use our trade unions as spaces to express our aspirations. If we are singularly wherever we are as individuals, our statements, our voices will only be frustrating whims.
Yes.
But when we are in unity, whatever we put forth shall inevitably be heard. After all, there are even laws that provide for hearing of people and the trade union into the context of collective bargaining. So to my colleagues out there who are working with the private schools, please be part of Uganda Private Teachers Union. Those who are in government schools, embrace the various unions that are existing. There is science teachers, there is so many other UNAT and others. Embrace those and be part of them. And use your union to put forth your aspirations, because it is allowed, it is provided for in the law, it is provided for under public service negotiating machinery and so many other frameworks. So at that, we will be able to go forward. Now, to us as a general citizenship, we must appreciate that education is a very fundamental social service. And the collapse of education is the collapse of a future generation. Therefore, to any leaders who are coming to us to aspire, for any leaders who are coming to us to ask for support here and there, first task that we should put to them is their agenda in line of education. Agenda must mean establishing the facilities that are reachable for our children to go and study, but also caring for the people who are going to look after our children when they go into those facilities. The school is not merely buildings. It is a setup where they are well prepared, motivated teachers who are willing to pass on learning or to facilitate learning. So let us speak to our leaders, local MPs, the presidents who are aspiring on their agenda to address the issue of better education for Uganda.
Okay.
Once it is lost, then our future generation is lost, and eventually our country may perish.
Well, interesting. That is a very, very strong call to the public out there. Yes, you have people who are coming. Basically, we're heading to 2026, so I think you can use this opportunity not to ask for a kilo of sugar, but ask for better education services. That is it from Mr. Juma. Well, now I see time has really slapped us. I want to request you to give us your last remarks in regards to the discussion today.
Thank you so much, my brother. Once again, at the management here, to the workers out there, our viewers out there, I want again to say thank you for being glued up from the time when you started up to this moment. There is one revelation I want to make. Naturally, for as long as you're offering your work, either individually, employed, or maybe working for a private entity or working for a government, that person utilizing you, what he aspires from you is to exploit you such that he can maximize his gains. Therefore, your only safeguard as an employee is unity, where you can use the power of unity to bargain for your aspiration. I therefore want to implore every person out there to embrace trade unions. It is so good to note that we almost have different sector unions that anybody here can go into. Our colleagues on borders have their own transport border based trade union. Our colleagues in the markets have their own. The traders here in Chikubo have those unions where they can well fit in, and therefore you use that to safeguard against all these infamous policies. For as long as we do not do that and we keep into the confines of our workspaces, there are a few people who are going to sit wherever they will sit and decide for us. And many times whatever they will decide for us will not be in our interest. So the best is to be said, to raise our voices that really reflect our aspirations, and such is through trade unions that have the advantage of collective bargaining as enshrined in the national laws. So kindly, let's embrace them. You may reach out to us at the National Organization of Trade Unions in Chari Wajala and get more information about this. You may reach out to me personally. My office is in Intinda, Chigowa Road, and get more information about this. I can also share my contact, especially for my colleagues in private schools. I am on 0779 55 6781. Then we can have a deeper conversation about our plight, about how we can address them. For the colleagues going through very tormenting situations there, maybe you're not paid your salaries, maybe you're being harassed at work, like you were seeing people being kicked there. We have teachers who are being paid by people who own schools. So if such schools are happening to you, please share with us. There can always be a remedy through our voices as trade unions. I want to thank you and wish you a very great week ahead.
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Juma, for coming through to share such important insights. And of course, one key take, I can call it a summary, is if you are unified, of course, your voices will be heard so loud. So please make sure you embrace the unity, make sure you embrace those associations in whatever workspace you are in. Please do go for that, and that is how you will be heard, because individually it may be challenging. Well, that is it for Issues at Hand. My name is Luke Majumba Naitwe, and we've been powered by Protea Hotel by Marriott in Entebbe. Very wonderful place to go to for any hotel service. I want to wish you a lovely day, and of course more More programs are coming ahead. Don't dare move away.